Hello and welcome. You're on StratNews Global. I'm Nitin Gokhale. Exactly 1 year ago today, a small clash on the banks of the Pangong Tso in Ladakh between Indian and Chinese soldiers and an accidental discovery of large mobilization of Chinese troops across the line of actual control in Eastern Ladakh marked the beginning of what is known now as the most serious crisis between India and China since perhaps 1962. In fact, the 1962 war ended in a month's time, but this is almost even ongoing even now as we see the crisis that began on 5th of May 2020. On the special program of the evening, The Gist, we have a complete discussion coming up with very eminent and very knowledgeable guests on India-China relations and also on the situation on the ground. So you're on The Gist, our evening program. As I mentioned, exactly a year ago, the Ladakh crisis in between India and China, the standoff, face-off crisis, whatever you want to call it, began. And we are still in the middle of that crisis in a way, although the first phase of disengagement at Pangong Tso, both on the north and the south bank, has already taken place. So what has happened in this 1 year, we will take a look at it. But first, let me introduce my very eminent guests here. First, Jayadeva Ranade, former additional secretary in the RNAW, cabinet secretariat, if you want to call it, and a China specialist, also president of the China Center for Analysis and Strategy. Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, a former GOC of the 14 Corps in Ladakh, and who retired as the Adjutant General of the Indian Army. And joining both of them is Atul Aneja, my old friend, fellow traveler, and a journalist who now heads the India Narrative portal. But he has, more importantly, has spent 6 or 7 years reporting on China from Beijing and, of course, traveling across China. Welcome, all three of you. I hope it's going to be a very fruitful discussion.
Thank you, Nitin.
Thank you. So, but before I get into that discussion, I want to take a look back at what exactly has happened in the past 1 year, how it began, and what are the milestones that we encountered along the way. So, a short glimpse of the past 1 year, starting on 5th of May. So, as you can see, the standoff began on 5th of May. 9th May, there was a clash in Nakula in Sikkim, very distant from Ladakh. Then, of course, the diplomatic efforts kicked in. 30th May, Defense Minister said that there will be bilateral talks. We will try and resolve the issue bilaterally. But going forward, the first Corps Commander level talks at that highest level on 6th of June took place, 6 June 2020. Earlier, the level of talks used to be at the brigadier's level, maybe at the major general level. So that was the first of the 11 rounds that have taken place so far between the Corps commanders on either side. But if you go forward, June was the most tense month in the June 2020 because the Galwan Valley clash took place on 15 June. Now we know certainly that 20 Indian soldiers were killed in action in that clash. And figures about the Chinese casualties vary, but they range from 10 to 45. And if we have to believe Russian news agency TASS, then the Chinese lost about 45 fatal soldiers in that clash. Then there was, of course, a big disengagement effort which was launched. There were talks at the clash site between the major generals on those dates, 15, 16, 17, 18th June of 2020. Going forward, I think it must have been one of the most difficult tasks for soldiers and leaders on the ground, officers on the ground. The Prime Minister also was forced to address the nation and say what exactly has happened, what are the issues, and what India is trying to do. That was on 17th of June. He did not go to Ladakh. He could not go to Ladakh perhaps until, I think, the first week of July. as we can see on the timeline as we go forward. But that is where I think just before he went there, there was a second round of the Corps commanders. That time there was Lieutenant General Harinder Singh, who was the Corps commander in 14 Corps. That happened on 22nd of June. But there were obviously no breakthroughs there. Both sides were fixed on their side of the story or what they wanted from each other. As we went forward, that I think was very clear that this is going to be a long haul. The third round took place. Then we saw the Prime Minister going to Ladakh on 3rd of July, where he said expansionist mindsets will not work or the age of expansionism has gone. All that kept happening. But it just took, as we can go forward, if our team can just take this forward quickly, the entire timeline. This is what the Prime Minister said. Age of expansionism is over. I'm just recapping all this just to give us a perspective. The Chinese Foreign Ministry, of course, reacted by saying strategic miscalculation India should not do. Then, of course, there was a discussion between the special representatives, NSA Ajit Doval and Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China. And it went on like this. The defense minister was in Ladakh on 17th of July, trying to give a morale booster to the soldiers. But then came one of the important milestones in this entire saga for the past 1 year, 29th and 30th of August 2020, when India did a counter move and went and occupied very strategic heights on the Kailash range, the Richinla Rizangla complex, as well as the heights on the Spangur Gap, uh, forcing China or surprising the Chinese PLA. Of course, tanks were taken up to those places, and then followed. That was followed by two meetings of at the highest level. In a way, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh met his counterpart in Moscow on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and followed by Dr. Jaishankar's meeting with his counterpart again in Moscow on the sidelines 3 days or 4 days later. Then the seventh round took place, no breakthrough. The Chinese wanted India to vacate those heights. There was face-off between tanks, and they were barely 50 meters apart from both sides. That happened in October. As we entered November, the talks were stalled. It was finally the ninth round of military talks between the current Corps commander there, Lieutenant General PGK Menon, and his counterpart in January that some kind of a breakthrough came. From what we know in the background, eighth round, the Chinese started saying, let's end this, or at least disengage, so that there's no miscalculation. This report I was referring to, TASS said that 45 PLA servicemen were martyred in May and June 2020 in Ladakh. So I think that was in a way a confirmation, because TASS is as official as it gets in Russia. Then, of course, 11th February, the first phase of disengagement of the armor, which was facing each other on the south bank, and parts of the face-to-face between soldiers on the north bank started. It took about 7 days. And then, of course, there was supposed to be further talks on the other friction points. So the 10th round took place on 21st February. And now an 11th round is awaited. While it seems that the talks on the other friction points like Depsang, Gogra, Hot Springs, and Demchok have stalled. That's where we are. I think 22nd February was the first phase of disengagement on north and south bank of Pangong Tso. If anybody thought that was the end of the story, not true, because it's still ongoing. And as the army chief has himself said, that the de-escalation, which is the third step envisaged, is still a long way off. So we are there. We are 1 year later, and that's why I want to start and talking to my guests here. First, Mr. Ranade, what do you think we have achieved so far, and where are we? Is any other breakthrough possible beyond this point now?
I think the prospects are bleak, if I may be very mention two or three reasons why. Firstly, when you talk about what have we achieved, I think if you want to look at it in a positive light, we have been able to stop the Chinese from advancing further because of our rapid mobilization, and we blocked them. Secondly, there has been no armed clash after the Galwan Valley incident. So I think if we want to, we can look at both as an achievement. But that doesn't mean that, there are not going to be clashes in future. And the points that I mentioned, why the prospects are bleak, 3 points. One is that China has, of course, it has always been claiming Ladakh, but it has formally stated its claim this time and repeated it during, in fact, the ongoing standoff and just at the time of Galwan. Their foreign minister and the spokesman of the Western. Secondly, which may or may not have been noticed, the Chinese have said to their own people that they are planning to develop, and in their 5-year plans of the Tibet Autonomous Region, that they are wanting to develop Pangong Tso as an international tourist spot. Now, the implications of this are not the tourism part, but the fact that they claim that they are going to develop this area, which means, again, that it becomes non-negotiable, and the area surrounding. The third, they have already carried out propaganda along the border regions. I won't go into that, but I would say that their mindset is also important. Are they or are they not in a mood to compromise, or in a mood to at least accommodate, if not compromise, India's interest? And I think if we read Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's statement on the sidelines of the National People's Congress on 7th of March, it is explicit that there is going to be no compromise by the Chinese. And in fact, it contains a warning to us not to initiate any confrontation. And the other point that I would like to make here is what happened this Sunday. The photographs which were put up, photographs juxtaposed with each other. One was the launch by the Chinese of their spaceship, and the second, side by side, was that of funeral pyres burning in Indian crematoria. And both were captioned "Ignite China, Ignite India." It is a very contemptible photograph that is put up, but what is significant is that it was put up on the official website of China's Political and Legal Affairs Commission, which is the highest security body directly under Xi Jinping. And not only that, it is probably the most powerful body of the Chinese Communist Party today. So this coming up certainly has a point. It stayed for 48 hours before being taken down. The Chinese claim is, the Chinese Cyber Administration and Public Security Bureau, their claim is they can take down offensive posts within minutes. Now, lest someone say that this was a one-off or an error, let me just, in conclusion, make the comment that the Hainan Public Security Bureau, on its official website, reproduced the same photograph, and it stayed there also for almost a day. So I think the mindset is equally important. They're looking at a very long, a long period of pressure on India, and their objectives are clear. But we will discuss that, I'm sure, later.
Yes,
Thank you.
we'll do that. In fact, I think very valid points, and I think there should be no complacency on India's part as far as the Chinese stand is concerned. I'm sure that's what exactly is going to be the pressure point that is going to come. I want to come to General Sharma next and ask him, when you look back in this 1 year militarily, while the initial surprise was certainly there, everybody has acknowledged that, but the rapid response and after that, the continuing reorientation and rebalancing of forces, how do they augur for India and, of course, the situation in Ladakh? What's your view on that?
Thank you, Nitin. Now, you rightly said that there was a surprise element in the month of May last year. But as you follow this last 1 year, there are little significant positives that you can take from this one. One is that the whole eventology has given us tremendous amount of confidence to the military forces. Confidence in the form that we have the political will to execute and military will to actually carry it out what we did in the form of redeployments and in form of deployment, taking of defenses which didn't exist. So there was a political will that was evident, which any adversary would feel that India may not have a political will to do so. So that's one. Second is that we have also shown the capacity to induct very large number of troops, to bring them to these places and carry out operations at super high altitudes, the kind which has not been carried out for quite some time. Kargil war, we fought of this kind, but we have not carried out operations of this kind which we have done now. Third, we were face to face. The tanks in the area of Richengla and Zangla were just about 150, 200 meters away. So we stood our ground, faced the tanks. In any other situation, if a tank comes 2 kilometers away, we would open fire. We won't allow him to come so close. Here they climbed up right from Pangong Tso and came up to face tanks. And this is not normally done. It's not normally warfare. So we stood there, we stood our ground, we faced the adversary and carried the day. And then fourthly, I would say that we also had the issue of winters. We don't have the roads, we don't have infrastructure which the Chinese had. Any adversary, the Chinese would have thought, look, after month of October, the Indians will raise their hands, they won't be able to carry on sustaining their forces. As it is, we are hard-pressed to sustain whatever we have in Siachen Glacier, Western Ladakh, and existing Eastern Ladakh. Getting 2 more divisions and sustaining will be difficult. So we did that in the winter. I think there are positives to be taken from the entire situation here.
That's true. In fact, I think that's very well said, because this was an unprecedented situation, and I think the pressure that was absorbed by the military and the kind of rapid response. And I think here the Air Force, the Army, all the strategic assets, everything that was strategic airlift that was there, everything was used, and I think it showed in the way the logistics also worked, or logistics chain really played up when it was required. I think that is a tribute to both the soldiers and the leaders, the officers and the planners at the highest level. And I think you made a first point about the political and the military will, both working in tandem, was, I think, the most important takeaway as far as the Ladakh situation was concerned. But Atul, coming to you.
Just a second here. You also mentioned the talks. Now, see, there are 150 hours of talks that have taken place, maybe 200 hours, one doesn't know exact timings, but 11 rounds of talk at a lieutenant general level with the PLA not done. So I think would have given us a great confidence to talk across the desk and stand to our positions. That also is an additional issue.
And lots of insights into their mindsets, or at least the military of the PLA, if nobody else. Atul, coming to you, you've stayed in China, and you were there when Xi Jinping was rising, and in fact, you just came back a couple of years ago from there. In your view, what was it that the Chinese were looking for when they actually attempted this adventure, misadventure, whatever you want to call it, in Ladakh? I mean, we have discussed this before, but when you look back 1 year later, have you changed your view, or you still continue to hold the view that they had something else in mind, but this was just a diversion or whatever? Just let our viewers know.
No, I think the one thing is very clear, that there is a certain context, Nitin, in which this took place, and it gets linked to Article 370 and the statements made regarding Aksai Chin, which the Home Minister made in Parliament. So I was in China at that particular time and got a sense that that is something which the Chinese have taken note of. I think the Chinese did test us out, and from a strategic point of view, their point of concern essentially was the Aksai Chin area. That is the link between Xinjiang and Tibet. And I think that is one thing which they will stick to even now. And I'm not surprised that while we have had these talks to disengage, apart from Pangong Tso, where they were on the defensive, essentially because of the action which took place in August 29th, 30th, and where Indians have come down and they have moved out. The rest of the places, they will not move because of this strategic compulsion from their perspective about Aksai Chin and the value it adds to the larger Belt and Road program, etc. So that's very, very important from a Chinese perspective. So I do think that there definitely surprised, I'm sure, with the Indian military response, which has been nothing short of outstanding. And that is something which they'll factor in their military training programs. They're a country which absorbs all this and draws lessons from it and also work out a counter strategy in the future. But I think the point where we have had military dialogue, which you talked about, Nitin, with their 11 rounds, which is substantial, huge amount of military to military at that level. And there's a lot of insight which would have come out of that. But I think if we were to move forward, now the time has really come to probe a political dialogue between India and China. And that's where it has to move to the level of SRs. We had something in Moscow which was worked out between Jaishankar and Wang Yi. So those are the kind of things which we need to explore. I'm not sure that the Chinese are this time in a mood to budge, and I'm there with Mr. Ranade on this. The Chinese does not appear to be any signs, except for, I think, what Xi Jinping sent a message to Prime Minister Modi, which something we need to discuss at some point. But otherwise, symbolism which is coming out of China is a very hard line. But at the same time, I think we need to start a back channel with the Chinese while keeping a powder dry, by keeping our deployments as they are in the land sector and also in the maritime sector. I think your Andaman Nicobar side, your 6-degree and 10-degree channels where we are working with the Quad, etc., that has to move in tandem. But while we keep our powder dry and keep a force, our force level which they are now, I think the time has also come to probe a dialogue with the Chinese and see if they have anything in mind or is it status quo, just to confirm our own apprehensions. I think it's good to talk, but then you can't talk, at a level so openly. So this is the time for a back channel to start, I think, and see where we can take it from here.
Okay, I think it's a point that can be discussed and argued. Perhaps let me also, a lot of people have expressed a lot of apprehensions when the first stage of disengagement took place. I just want to just to refresh our memory, just want to play a small bite of the Northern Army commander, Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, in an interview to me in Leh. As the disengagement was taking place towards the end, we spoke in Ladakh. And I had asked him this, that everybody is asking a question that what have we achieved at Pangong Tso? Because that was a matter of optics, because when Chinese had come and sat between finger 4 and finger 8. And I think he was very clear that the first objective was to get them out of that place. So let's hear what he said, and then I'll come back to the discussions.
Finger 8.
Right.
The PLA is going back behind finger 8, behind our claim line. They are restoring the entire landform from finger 4 to finger 8 back to April 2020. They will not carry out any activity to our side of finger 8, that is our claimed areas.
Correct.
It's a huge success.
That's right.
How
And they
are we
used to come
seeding?
up to finger 4, right? Earlier.
They should come up to finger 4.
And their claim also remains at finger 4.
The claims remain to finger 4. But I mean, like I said, we have to see it in this manner, that he is not doing any activity, military or otherwise, in the areas claimed by us.
Exactly.
It is a huge success.
It is.
So I think that point he was trying to make, and I'll play one more bite little later in the program, which he talks about the other friction points. But the point here is that having done that, I'm sure both the political and the military leaders, Mr. Ranade, were aware that this is only one step in the disengagement, but there is no sign of de-escalation or de-induction of troops. And your piece that you just, I think, got published today, and I've been saying this for the last 7-8 days also, about how the rotation of the Chinese troops have taken place. They show no signs of going back anywhere. So in that sense, the Chinese are going to keep us there for a long haul, and I think we also need to match the numbers. What do you think they want to achieve at the end of it? If this goes on for the next 2 years, what is their aim, Mr. Ranade, to bring such large force in Aksai Chin now and permanently keep them there?
Nitin, this is a very, in fact, this is the nub of it all, the question that you asked. I mean, why did they do it? Let me just mention a couple of points here. First, I would like to go to what Atul alluded to. He didn't specify, giving me a chance to put it out there. But, ever since the Chinese announced and then operationalized the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and made the commitment, financial commitment to that China-Pakistan economic corridor. It is not just the finance; it is the strategic umbrella that they are now providing, on the China-Pakistan nexus. Ever since then, they have a stake in the entire area through which the CPEC goes, which includes Aksai Chin, POK, Gilgit, Baltistan. So they want to secure that area, they want to secure those investments. And I would say that what they did, this is one of the objectives that they have. So I'm just elaborating what Atul said. Second point is that shortly after operationalizing the China-Pakistan economic corridor, they reorganized the theatre commands and set up the Western Theatre Command. I don't know whether we paid enough attention to it at that time or not, but the Western Theatre Command is the largest theatre command, largest of the 5 theatre commands that China has. It combines the Lanchao military region and Tibet military region, erstwhile, into one. It incorporates Qinghai into the Western Theatre Command, thereby allowing the PLA to train troops in high altitude and acclimatize them and induct them into Tibet without us having a clue. And finally, it has the largest amount of military hardware available to it. So this Western Theatre Command, its operational tasking, which the Chinese have spelled out, is to safeguard the borders of Afghanistan, borders with Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, and protect the CPEC and its assets. So it is if I may use the term, intrusive role also which the Western Theatre Command has. Having said this, let me just come to the next part, that I think when we are looking at what they did, they had started preparing for, quote, teaching us a lesson on, because the number of friction points that were accumulating between India and China were increasing, and the relationship was deteriorating. Forget what you read in the press. I don't know.
Despite Wuhan and Mamallapuram. Despite
Yes,
Wuhan and Mamallapuram.
despite Wuhan and Mamallapuram, and despite the hype that the media built up, I don't know why. But despite that, there was a progressive deterioration in relations. So my assessment was that by 2017, they decided to do something. And then when you start looking or studying at the military media, you find the number of exercises by the PLA and the PLAF in Tibet have increased at least threefold, if not more. The nature of the exercises showed a qualitative improvement or a difference, and they began inducting their latest aircraft into the Western Theatre Command. Earlier, the priority was, for example, on J-20 to the Eastern Theatre Command and then the Southern Theatre Command, then the Western Theatre Command. They changed it. After 2017, the Western Theatre Command was put on par with the Eastern Theatre Command. So there was all this happening. So to my mind, or to me, this didn't come as a surprise, what they did. Now the question is, what is the future? As I said, I don't see them pulling back. I know that General Joshi has said, you just showed us the clip, that the success is that they are not going to carry out any military activity in 4 and 5th Finger 8. But the fact is, there is no trust with the Chinese today. So how can we be sure how long this will last? And finally, that if their objective is to secure the territories through which the CPEC goes, then the situation is far from concluded. They still have to make an effort to secure that, either by humbling us and getting us to agree, or by securing it through military maneuvers.
That's true. In fact, before I come to General Sharma, I want to play the second bite of General Joshi about the other friction points which we are going to discuss subsequently. If you can play that first, and then let me come to General Sharma.
Which are these other friction points?
So the other friction points are, we start with Depsang.
Right.
Then we have in the Soksalu salient, the PP15, PP17 alpha. And then, of course, we have the CNN junction, that is the Nimchok area.
Right.
And like I said, that once we agreed to disengagement, it was also agreed that the day the disengagement finishes, within 48 hours, we'll have another Kokorno level flag meeting.
Correct.
And then we will discuss all the other areas, and resolve them.
Exactly. So the Depsang has been an old issue for some time. What is the issue there?
You see, Depsang, one has to understand, is not related to the present imbroglio that is because of which we launched Snow Leopard. This is a legacy issue.
Right.
And as I mentioned earlier, 2010, when a brigade commander here, this was a flashpoint then as well.
Correct.
And the other thing you have to understand is this is the area where the areas of differing perception is the largest.
Okay.
And like I said, it predates the present situation. And so since it is the largest area, our patrols go. So they want to give us a face-off, and when their patrols come, we give them a face-off. So that is what is the situation prevailing there now. The situation is not volatile.
Right.
And it has to be resolved at some level, and I'm sure it will get resolved.
So, General Sharma, taking off from what the Northern Army Commander said, I think you have also written a piece on the Depsang, DVO, that area. There was one of the silly comments that came that the Chinese threatened to capture DBO, and therefore we acceded to the disengagement. Some comment I read from a learned journal, which I was surprised about. But let's not get into that. You have written about how Indian patrols have been going to Depsang and to those PP 12, 13, and 14, or 10, 11, and 12. What is the situation there since you've commanded the corps there? You can give us one clarification, then I'll ask you one more question.
Okay, you see, Depsang is indeed, as the Army Commander said, a legacy issue. It has continued. We had a 22 days standoff in the same area in May and May of 2013. And the same bottleneck that has been blocked today, it was blocked in 2012, 2013 also. And of course, as the Army Commander said, it's been continuing for all times. So the fact is that despite the fact that there was a standoff for 22 days, we have continued the patrolling to that areas of up to finger 13. In fact, a patrol is so large that it splits into many parts and goes to many patrol points. And it carries out a very elaborate 5 to 6 days endeavor there. And the patrols are many. It could be, I don't want to number it, but it could be 2 a month or 1 a month. To say, I would have counted about 2,500 to 3,000 troops of all ranks, including officers who would have gone to Depsang from 2013 till date, till 2019. Now, of course, it is a legacy issue. Of course, that there are at times face-offs that our patrols are not able to go through. But a number of times, we carry it out. Also, Vaso sorties. The helicopters who go land up at PP13, see the area and come back. So, while Depsang was a legacy issue, but it's not that we were not dominating. But having said that, as Mr. Ranade rightly pointed out, and there is a trust deficit. But I would read into the issues here involved. China claims in Depsang, for example, he claims that his area is up to Burtse. He comes so close to the port. Burtse is where Raki Nala begins. He comes down to the plains, close to Depsangla. And while we claim the Depsang. Now, a similar thing was happening in Pangong Tso 4 and 8. As we know, 4 and 8 everybody knows in India now and worldwide. Yeah. And similar things are there in Gogra and in Hot Springs. So the fact is that either we go the buffer way that we went in 4 and 8, where we decided a buffer of 8 kilometers, either you come nor I come there, and implant a similar buffer, not of the same size. It could be 500 meters, it could be 2 kilometers into the other areas, which makes sure that neither he comes to his claimed area nor we go there. So there is a similar situation as Pangong Tso. Or one very good way is, okay, you decide odd days I come to my areas, even days you come down here, so you dominate which you think your claim lines. Till the time a political decision is taken, whatever lines we contemplated from last 50, 60 years, you dominate your areas on odd days and I dominate on even days, or first 15 days I do, second 15 days you do. So there will be nobody leaving the claim lines, but you are finding a way out of these current imbroglios in Soksalo area, or Galwan, or Demchok, which is CNN Junction, as Army Commander mentioned, and the other. So the way out has to be found from these solution that we found at Pangong Tso.
Right. So on those lines, it can be thought, but that's a tactical, kind of solution, and that is actually more important because that tactical misjudgment or mismanagement can lead to strategic implications going forward, perhaps.
I add one more thing, small thing. See,
Yes, please.
finally he got two divisions. He got two divisions here. He's changed two divisions. He brought two new divisions. He's made paraphernalia, accommodation, infrastructure, Rudok, Ali district, whatever we say, he's been doing it. We done same thing. We also had two divisions. We also made great infrastructure in Ladakh in the course of defensive infrastructure and habitat in the course of same time. And two divisions doesn't mean war. Two divisions, he has to get through people through gullies. They're all gullies, small gullies. They 8-10 of these small gullies, which is 3 kilometers wide. He can't get tanks on top of the ridge lines. Those gullies can be dominated. Two divisions doesn't mean that he wanted to take on 62. This is not 62.
That's a very valid point. In fact, for our viewers, I just want to say this, that while there's a lot of reporting that you must have read recently, that even I have written about it, that the Chinese have brought in 2 fresh divisions, I think 8 and 11 they've brought in. India has also done rejigging and reorientation of its forces. Now, officially, at least in public domain, what we know is that one division, that the three division will look after the northern areas north of Pangong Tso, and one more force that has come in will look after the southern part of the Pangong Tso, south of Pangong Tso areas on the Eastern Ladakh frontier. So that way, India has already got that, and there are plans already in place about rotating some of the well-acclimatized brigades from other formations that India has. So that, like General Sharma says, is not a worry. What is the worry is that while the Chinese may do this bits and pieces, they will keep coming for their exercises. We will keep going for the exercises. What is the way forward? Like Atul had said, there has to be political talks. But I also want to understand from you, Atul, and what is your view, whether the Chinese are also trying to send us a message that you deal with us directly rather than get into an alliance like Quad or get closer to the United States. Is that something that they want to tell us upfront?
Well, definitely, Nitin, because when I was in China, that's now 2019, towards the end of 2019, we had the meeting of the foreign ministers of the Quad in the UN Security Council in September. And my sources in China were telling me that you have crossed the line. You were having your meetings at the official level, but now you have raised it to the level of foreign ministers. So they're really, really concerned and worried about the Quad element and the militarization of the Quad if it takes place, and which I think it is moving in that direction. So there's definitely a concern, but that is also our leverage. I do not see any point in losing the leverage right now till we come to a settlement with them on other fronts. So that's very, very crucial. As I said, Andaman Nicobar, very crucial, going with the Japanese and Australians and the Americans in that theater, as we do with the Russians in the Eurasian side, which is separate. I mean, it's like a theater command. This is one theater where we have the Americans and the Australians and the Japanese, whereas when you come to the Eurasian side, you need the Russians in Central Asia, etc., where the Chinese are also muscling in and the Russians don't like it. That's one thing. The second point is, I think the Chinese are really concerned. I take the point from where Mr. Ranade left, which is CPEC, which is Belt and Road Initiative. Now, Chinese concern really is the passage of CPEC through Gilgit-Baltistan. That is something which is of primary concern. And I think they would be, in fact, I would hazard by saying that, when we had this LOC kind of a ceasefire revival, while it is the Pakistanis and us who are talking about it, I will not be very surprised if it is in Chinese interest as well for this to happen. Because if you have the LOC as the international border, or if you have it as a soft border as was contemplated since 2005, that secures CPEC. That means that your Gilgit-Baltistan is secured, and that is in Chinese interest. So I would very much like to investigate further and try and find out whether this is something the initiative is from the Pakistani has come out of the blue, or there is a larger plan to it. I think there is a larger plan. And also because CPEC is something which takes the Chinese to the Indian Ocean, rather it takes you to the Arabian Sea. So it's a very, very strong strategic area for the Chinese. And I think the talks which we will have is going to revolve around Aksai Chin, one strategic area, CPEC on the other side. And, we have to maintain the pressure and posture and be very patient because this is not going to go away. It's a marathon which we are running, and we must have the stamina to stay the course.
I think, again, very valid point there. But I want to switch to Mr. Ranade here. There's a question by one of the viewers on our Twitter handle, and then I'll ask you the larger question and final comments from all of you. One of the questions is, what if what's happening now is that China is dipping stick to check our overall strategies? The real action comes somewhere around mid 2023. Which serves two objectives: area domination, effect on 2024 elections, Modi gets dethroned, or a weak coalition government comes in. It ties in with you, Mr. Ranade, in the early days of this crisis, when you had mentioned, if I remember correctly, that one of the objectives that the Chinese may have had is to probe how much can the Indian government withstand and also try and humiliate Prime Minister Modi and his government. Is that something that is valid, this question that was asked by one of the viewers?
Yes, I think it's very valid. They had two objectives, as I said. One is to stop our rise, if they could, and the second is to humiliate this government. There is a very interesting article that I must invite your reference to by
Right.
Husher. He is the head of the South Asian Studies Department of the Chinese Institutes of Contemporary International Relations. It is one of the most prominent think tanks in China, very influential, because it is a think tank of the Ministry of State Security. And he made 2 or 3 very valid points, which I will just mention in brief. First, he said since the time China got liberated and India became independent, a showdown was inevitable. That was the first point. Of course, he elaborated, but I'm just mentioning that. The second he said was that the two armies, the Chinese and the Indian army, will keep pushing each other, at times resulting in armed clashes, till they reach some kind of a red line for each other, which will define the LAC. He makes that point. And the third point he makes is that the trigger, according to him, and he should know, he said the trigger point for the Chinese was to stop India's rise and global profile, which started since 2014. So certainly we know who came in 2014 and what, and there were other indicators, but let me just mention these. So this is certainly valid even today. Stop our rise and humiliate the government. And of course, the CPC is the territorial objective.
Right. So let me invite final comments. So let me start with you, continue with you, Mr. Ranade. What next? India currently going through a raging pandemic, seems weaker than ever before. Economy in real doldrums in a way, and maybe it'll take a lot of time for India to recover. In this context, in this window, or will the Chinese see this as a window of opportunity to carry out what you just mentioned about humiliating this government or trying to push its own agenda? That's a question for you. Your final comments on this.
Well, the fact that they came and appeared on our borders in May, when again we were reeling under a COVID attack, COVID.
Yes.
It's that is not going to deter them. And this time, when we are really reeling under a very virulent second phase of COVID, certainly our economy is going to be very, very badly hit. We are going to take time to recover. There are a lot of things that are going to happen, obviously, because in the wake of this COVID pandemic. But I certainly would like to say and assert that we will certainly come out of it. I mean, in what shape, I do not know, but we will certainly come out of it. And our elements, force elements, are still intact to at least block the Chinese, if not inflict punishment on them. General Sharma would be better placed, but this is my reading. And the third thing, which I think Beijing needs to keep in mind, is that we are not going to forget all that has happened and what they have done. So I think, going ahead, I don't see us yielding ground very easily. And I think the policy that we'll adopt is probably to keep talking like we are doing in this commander level talks. I think every sensible person knows it's not leading us anywhere, but we'll keep
Right.
talking one channel. Meanwhile, we will prepare and we'll try and work on other points where we can inflict some kind of cost on them.
I think that is an important point you make, is that India will come out of it strong and will continue, the talks will continue. I think people need to be patient, because I think, as someone remarked to me the other day, that while we took 9 rounds, it took 9 rounds to do the initial disengagement. It might as well take another 9 rounds to do the solution for the other friction points. General Sharma, before I ask you my question, there is one question from, I think, a former military man, who asks whether there are any points about a quid pro quo kind of an action in DBO Depsang area, like we did in Richinla Rizangla. So please answer that, and then I'll ask you my question.
To say it simply, that there are hundreds of options. Why restrict ourselves to Depsang and DBO? There are so many options available to us, not only in this sector, the central sector or the east. So, we have a quiver full of options to be tried out, and whenever we wish to try it out, and let's keep that thing at that area, at that issue dead for the time being, saying that yes, we can do many things.
Great to know that. Now, this show is entitled "What Next?" after the 1 year of the standoff. From a military point of view, what do you think India needs to do, or is India doing, and what should be something that can deter the Chinese from not just trying to coerce us, or what will sort of stop the Chinese from coercing us, or will they continue to try and coerce us? I won't say continue to coerce us, but try and coerce us militarily. General Sharma.
Okay, Nitin, I want to make 3 points. One is that we have to get our eyes and ears sorted out. We still do not have the eyes and ears of the kind that we need to have. We must get on with it. Stop getting surprised. How many times can we allow Kargil to happen or Aksai Chin to happen? I mean, it's become a kind of habit that, we say, okay, aftermath, we do damn good job. But what happens, when we get surprised? It pains us immensely. So if he's making a road from Skardu through Mustaq Pass to join up directly with 219, we want to know about it. Why is he making a new road which bypasses Kunjareb and comes directly to 219? Why is he making a road called 216, which is coming parallel to 219, starting from Urumchi through Kundun Mountains, such a difficult road, and connecting down with laterals and axials joining 219? We got to know when his formations decide to move out from Rudok or Kasgar or wherever or Chengdu, wherever. I mean, you can't say he landed up in Rudok and he says he landed up. That's too late for us to react. So, second is our eyes and ears have to be sorted out. We need to do something about it. Third issue I wish to make it is that he's got huge mines which have come up in Aksai Chin, the other side of Konkala Pass, east of Konkala Pass. 40% of his total zinc and lead reserves have been found in Aksai Chin. He is a greedy gentleman looking for all kind of raw materials that he can get from anywhere in the world. Why would he allow Aksai Chin right next to, when we say Gogra and Hot Springs, there is Konkala Pass where, operation took place in P62. He's got a huge mining opportunity coming up there. He won't leave the mining opportunity. So Aksai Chin, he's going to make a township there in times to come. It will become a city in time, and he'll make cultural change into Aksai Chin. The point I want to make it last one is, as you know, our rules of engagement have changed. We had, when you came first time to us in Ladakh in 2013, we had this many forces there. Today we have that many forces. You know how the whole culture of Eastern Ladakh defense has changed from 2010 to 2021. The rules of engagement have changed. We are now not fighting. There's some rounds also fired in Spangur Su. Yes. Nobody got hurt. But yes, we are not fight with barbed wire tied around onto poles. Next time Galwan happens, they will be firing. There will be many body bags. I think that thought process that there will be many body bags will itself be a major deterrent to any nation who's so worried about his public opinions. He hides. He did not tell how many people died in 62 till 1994. He announced in 1994 how many people died in 62. That also must be great amount of lying. So we have to assure on the borders that and he should be assured also the borders that there would be great amount of pain and anguish to him in case he tries it. If he tries an October wala Bombay, something like a cyber attack or what he did, well, that are separate matters altogether and not my expertise. But we got to be prepared for realms of warfare which go beyond borders.
Which are non-contact and non-kinetic, perhaps. That could be the way
but very
that
important.
they might
But very
attempt
important.
at. I think very, very, very important points that you have made, that it's the Indian military is no longer the military of 1962, which Mr. Ranade also alluded to. And I think that the message has already gone home as far as the Chinese are concerned, because they are afraid of bloodshed and they want to win without fighting. Final word to you, Atul Aneja. Going forward, what do you foresee? I mean, I know it's very difficult to predict. It's not done to predict the future. But what do you see over the next 1 year would be the Chinese behavior? Not just vis-a-vis India, but the rest of the world.
Nitin, I'll just take off from where General Sharma said. We completely agree with that. I mean, we have to do what he has, that you have to go beyond, you go to the other domains like cyber, etc., and to be prepared and standoff weapons, which you talked about. I look at the strategic domain. What worries me most is the exit of Trump and the coming in of Joe Biden. Because I do believe the signals which are coming, including the G7 meeting we had yesterday, that the Americans are in some way going to accommodate with the Chinese. It's not the Trump administration of Pompeo which had the ideological agenda of taking on and demolishing the Communist Party of China. It was an ideological fight during Trump's time. In this case, during Joe Biden's time, they want to take the upper hand, but ultimately, my view is that they will come to some accommodation with the Chinese. What happens at that point in time? And we got to start preparing a plan B on a diplomatic and strategic plane right away. I do believe that we have to activate our Russian track big time. There has been a close relationship between the Russians and the Chinese because of sanctions, Ukraine, a lot of other factors went into that. But the Russians and the Chinese fought a war with each other in 1969. And the Russians, and I can say with my own investigation as a journalist, they do not want the Chinese through the Belt and Road muscling into Central Asia. And they are giving us all the feelers that, we can't handle the Chinese alone in that theater. You guys come, maybe CSTO, maybe something. We need to explore those options as well and activate that track. I think we got to be far more nimble in the strategic sense, because as I said, this is a long-term game. And, if it's like a chess match, if one falls, then what is the next? So we got to build these layers before we come to a dialogue with the Chinese, because a dialogue it eventually will be, which will sort it out. But you cannot have a dialogue without being in a position of strength.
Absolutely. I think, gentlemen, all of you have made very valid and very important points. And as we end 1 year of that crisis between India and China on the border, there are other domains to look at, the Indo-Pacific, the Quad, the Russian angle, as Atul has mentioned, the Indian military's ability now to rapidly react to any situation, and also have quid pro quo options anywhere against the Chinese. And as Mr. Ranade mentioned, that their long-term aim has been to keep India down. That must be kept in mind by all our decision makers and all our people. And I suppose the beginning of that pushback has come in the way that the Huawei has been denied. Huawei company has been denied the participation in the 5G trials, which I think is a start point. On that note, I want to thank all of you once again. Thank all our participant viewers who have joined in large numbers. They've also shot some questions and, of course, opinions. But do keep watching not just the gist, but also keep reading and watching StratNews Global. You've been a great support to us in the past 1.5 years. And we will continue to bring you such discussions and opinions and commentary. Do like us on our social media platforms. Our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. give us more encouragement in terms of support, and we will continue to do what we are doing. Until the next time, it's goodbye.